Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. And today we have someone that's going to chat with you about what he learned during his challenges in life and actually went and put in a book. You know, I love a good true story. I love a good opportunity for all of us to learn something new and for him to be able to share and teach us a little something about anxiety and dealing with mental health. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Mr. Darius Fennell, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
So happy that you are here. Mental health and mental wellness, which aren't always the same, are pretty important to me, important to most of our viewers. So I want to get right into your book, why you wrote it, and what do you want people to get out of it?
Yeah, so I am, as the host said, Darius Fennell. I am a mental health and therapy advocate. I am not a licensed clinician, so I like to get that disclaimer out of the way. But I have struggled with anxiety like all my life and officially diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder about 6 years ago. And the reason why I wrote my book was just out of a place of empathy, right?
Mm.
Um, I was in a place where not only did I have anxiety, but I had it so bad to the point where it turned into panic attacks. And I ended up going to the hospital because I actually thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack. And so I was in the hospital for about 5 days. They ran endless tests under the sun, and everything came back negative. And so they sent me home the same way that I came in, with a little bit of medication. But other than that, like I did not know what to do, And so fast forward 5 years later, I'm like, what would I say to that person who was sent home from the hospital, and to give them some type of framework to say, you don't know what you're dealing with and are in this place of feeling stuck and hopeless. Here's a guide to help you to find your new normal. And so this birth, leaving Jupiter, which is an analogy. If you can imagine being on the planet Jupiter, its gravity is about 2.5 times as strong as Earth's. The winds there are very like aggressive and hectic. There's no really known surface to stand on. Imagine trying to leave that place on your own. It would be almost impossible. And so this is why, excuse me, I stress the importance of not only advocating for your mental health, but partnering with licensed professionals, right? Rule out any physical thing by going to speak with your primary care physician, right? Don't just go online and try to diagnose yourself, right? Because if you're wrong, you're not going to fix anything. Perhaps you could even make things worse. Um, your ability to articulate and talk about the things that you're dealing with, whether it's physical or mental, will help with your ability to get a good prognosis, a diagnosis, and a path forward. And this is why I also advocate for making sure you journal. I don't have a photographic memory. So a lot of times if I've been to appointments where I'm like, I'm going to remember everything. And I get in there and I'm like, oh, I forgot, and that symptom may be important. It could change your entire, path forward in terms of what the doctor or therapist may say to you. So I strive to break down mental health stigmas because that was one of the things that prevented me from getting help. Was I didn't want to look lazy or crazy, inadequate or weak. And so I figured, you know what, I'll do what I've always done and just, go faster, just speed through life and think I can outrun all these things, and also defining my sense of self-worth by performance. And so when those things stopped working and the bill came due, I was in a place where I was stuck and I didn't know what to do. And I pretty much kind of had to start all over.
So when you took yourself to the hospital, when you got admitted to the hospital,
hmm
what were some of your symptoms? What were you feeling to feel like I need help? Talk
Well,
about that.
my symptoms are so bad, I didn't even take myself to the hospital. I had to beg my wife to drive me because I'm like, I thought I was dying because my heart rate, I was actually in the middle of a nap. was sleep.
Mm.
And this thing woke me up. And my resting heart rate was around 140 plus. And I'm like, okay, I'm not thinking about anything. Like, matter of fact, I just finished a work assignment. And so I'm in cruise control mode. So I thought, but the heart rate had gotten so high, I felt lightheaded, I had shortness of breath, my chest got tight, my throat got tight. There's a thing called dissociation where you feel
Mhm.
like you're not real and the things around you aren't real. And I'm like, I've never experienced, anxiety to this degree before, which was, later diagnosed as, panic disorder. But it was so bad that I wasn't even thinking about mental health. I literally thought my heart was going to at some point beat so fast and then just stop. So it took me a while to get around to accepting that this was a mental health issue.
Let me ask you this because sometimes we get we get subconscious and we're like, well, I'm just tripping. But once you were diagnosed, was there ever a time when your wife told you about things that she noticed about you? And I'm asking this because there may be someone telling another person, like, I'm noticing this change in you, or are you all right? And they are very, I'm fine, because you thought you were fine. So once you were diagnosed, once it all took a head and you were diagnosed, you were in the hospital, did your wife ever tell you anything that she noticed about you that maybe she didn't say, or you kind of shrugged off? Like, what was going on before that happened?
Yeah. So not only my wife, but I would say going back even a decade, people were pretty much who didn't even know each other were saying the same thing. You need to slow down or you're going to get sick. I'm like, I only know one gear, and that's go. And it's always worked for me. So I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep using it until, you keep ignoring your check engine light long enough. Just like a real car, at some point, you're going to be on the side of the road waiting for somebody to pick you up, you know? And that's basically what happened to me. There were several, you know, I could probably count on two hands how many people were saying the same thing.
So
And
this wasn't any like childhood trauma that is coming back. This is you doing this to you did this to you.
absolutely.
Wow.
But it's the mindset of surviving. And when that's all and that's been your mode of operation, until it doesn't work anymore, you're going to continue to use it. Um, I'd been in places before where I'd maybe have a heavy period of anxiety. I'd burn out, then I'd recover and just kind of continue the cycle again. But this one was a little different. This one was uh, this was a mountain compared to the smaller hills that I encountered in the past. This one really put me down. You asked earlier about symptoms. One of the other ones that I didn't mention was agoraphobia, which is a fear of leaving your house. Because I was afraid that I was going to encounter having another panic attack in public, but this time my wife wouldn't be there to, help me, or I'd be in a place where nobody could help me. And on top of that, it'd be embarrassing because it puts you down. It really puts you down. Like you feel like you just want to lay down and not do anything and hope that it goes away. It's very scary.
Wow. So I just wanted to make that clear because the part of the stigma of mental health, mental illness, is
Mm.
that you have to have some traumatic background. You have to have gone through some childhood trauma or been a victim of some type of abuse or something,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, to give you a little background, I was one of three boys. Both my parents were teachers in the school district that I went to school in for 30 plus years. So, we had high standards that we grew up with. And for me, I internalized a lot at to say, okay, well, if I perform highly, then that means I'm worthy of love. And that gives me a sense of um, just worthiness. And so that kind of becomes hardwired in your brain, and you take that into your relationships, you take that into your job, you take that into fathering, you take that into everything else that you encounter, and there's no sense of balance. And so things like self-care, getting proper rest, eating properly, exercising, taking time off to rest to recover, spending time with family and just recharging, I had neglected a lot of that stuff. And in your 20s and 30s, you might be able to get away with it, but right around this time, I had just turned 40, and my body just said enough. When we can't do this anymore, the bill is due, and if you don't find another way, this is not going to change. There is no resiliency. There is no. You're just going to power through this. There is no man up. Right now, it's man down, and you need to seek help.
Man down, I need help. What did that conversation look like with you and your wife once you were diagnosed, and understanding what you were going to have to do to get better and stay better?
It was kind of uncharted territory for like both of us because once all the tests and things came back, there was like a period where I was still experiencing like panic attacks, and so that may mean okay, everybody kind of has their roles that they do in the house. Well, if I'm not well, I can't do mine, so now that doubles the things that she has to do, right? So it's one of those things where the dynamics of the entire house changes because I didn't even like coming down to eat dinner.
Mm.
I couldn't. My body was just like, if you can imagine feeling like the sensation that your body's vibrating, or that just sitting somewhere is like exhausting to the point where you just want to go and lay down. And it starts from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to bed. I was just in a really bad place. So really, we were just trying to make do with, well, maybe this is going to be it this is me the rest of my life, you know? Um, but this is where therapy came in, and I was able to at least deal with the mental part of things of, okay, why am I having these catastrophic thoughts, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy kind of talks about the cognitive distortions, right? The binary thinking, the all or nothing thinking that would constantly push me back into anxiety. And I had done these things all my life, but there was a resiliency that said, oh man, you can recover from this. And I would use that as fuel. And in a worldly sense, like it made me successful because it pushed me to be diligent. It pushed me to be consistent with getting my work done or performing. But it also led to neglecting myself. And eventually, like I said, my body just said, we're not doing this anymore. We're done. So
Overachievement can be a trauma response. Like you were saying,
mhm.
you just wanted to achieve. You just wanted to achieve. What was motivating you to achieve or overachieve?
Again, when you internalize and define your sense of worth by what you're able to perform, um, again, that became something I carried into my adulthood. Right. And again, since there's no sense of balance, you never really have that sense of like gratification and being satisfied. Like it'll never be enough, right? Because it's an external thing. And then, through therapy, you learn that, hey, this is intrinsic. You're born with this. How do I walk this thing out and walk into an acceptance that I'm worthy, whether I have a good day or a bad day, whether I'm achieving, whether I'm getting a 4.0, whether I'm getting a raise at work or a bonus or some type of recognition. That on the good days and bad days, your worthiness does not change. And so that took me a while to say I'm still something I'm working through
Struggling. You sound like you
as
still.
I work with a therapist, through that because, well, when you've done something for 40 years, even when you recognize it's not the right way to go, it's ingrained in you. It's like if I told you today, when you get to a light, green means stop and red means go. I could tell you that, you could accept that intellectually, but guess what? When that light turns green, you're probably going to put your foot on the gas until you're like, oh shoot, yeah, I'm not supposed to drive like that anymore. It's the same way with something that's ingrained. You don't even think about it. It's within the subconscious level. And this is why it takes practice, and it takes somebody like a therapist who can call you on your stuff that you don't even realize that you're doing. Right. And so being able to sit with the uncomfortable emotions, right? Like you said, like what was behind all the wanting to achieve and perform? We had to peel all that stuff back. And there were some days that were very uncomfortable. And there were times if my session was maybe at lunchtime, I'd take the rest of the day off. Because this, like, it's one thing to hear something from like a loved one. You can kind of debate with them and say, oh, but when somebody's professionally trained and they don't have the same emotional investment of trying to, change you or whatever. This is their job to help you to navigate through this. Oh, it hurt. And I'm like, you know what? I just need to go for a walk. And I've gone through, it's been my second therapist. My first therapist had gone to like more of a group format, and I kind of wanted to have that one-on-one time. I did the group format for a while, but one-on-one, she was a lot more direct and blunt than the first one. And I didn't need that the first time around because I was in such a vulnerable place. I needed someone to kind of just help me to just be. But this time around, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for that level of work now because I've had the foundation laid by the first therapist. So, but yeah, there's some when you're ready to do the work, you're going to have to embrace discomfort. There's no way around it.
One thing I know for sure, as a fellow mental illness battler, is that we have to monitor our triggers. How do you monitor your triggers and get the people around you? I don't know if it's your wife and whoever else to recognize, like, okay, I know I'm being triggered right now. Like, I'm a go, or I need a timeout. Like, how do you get them to? Because you know your triggers, and you know what you need to do to battle through your triggers.
Yeah.
How do you get the people around you to understand that?
Well, I think first and foremost, like it's your responsibility. And one of the things I had to learn through therapy is being proactive, not waiting for the trigger to show up. But if I know that, I'm dealing with, say, you know, uh, criticism, right? And I know that that triggers me. Then guess what? That morning, maybe I start with affirmations that deal with worthiness and accepting myself. So I'm not waiting to say, oh, well, I'm not holding somebody else responsible for my own responses and things that are going on inside of me, right? Like that's my responsibility. And so again, the first step, and I talk about this in my book, Leaving Jupiter, is having an awareness, right? Like one of the things that you learn about in cognitive behavioral therapy is, oh, you know what? I'm doing that thing again. Okay. Now it's not you want to remove the shame from that because sometimes you're like, oh man, I messed up again. It's like, no, it's not about, did you mess up or did you do good? Did you bad? Did you do bad? Is it occurring? Are you recognizing that you're in the moment? Okay, now that you're recognizing it, what are the tools that your therapist gave you that you can start to utilize, or what proactive things can you do, knowing that you're going to continue to encounter the triggers on a daily basis? Some people may be triggering, they don't even realize they're doing it. And it could just be you have an area that hasn't really, healed yet. So again, I don't look at so much of telling people, oh, hey, you're triggering me. It's no, this is my responsibility of understanding why this is happening. And this is a be an ongoing conversation with your therapist. But first and foremost, you need to have the awareness that it's happening and to have your tools in place to say, okay, like for me, it's anytime I feel myself being triggered, not necessarily by a person, but maybe a certain circumstance, or sometimes the body will just kind of go on its own and just, for whatever reason, decide that it wants to be anxious. Right. That was one of the other things that was difficult for me. I'm like, I'm not thinking about anything. Why does it feel like a lion is in this house trying to eat me? But there's no lion. Right. Why am I feeling this? And I'm not thinking about anything. That's why I thought this got to be my heart. Like, is something wrong with my cardiovascular system because I'm not thinking about anything in particular. But one of the also things I learned about anxiety is not just the thoughts, but it's the alarm within the body that you have to address as well. Right. And anything could trigger it. Like, could be nothing sometimes. It just, your body decides, you know what, right now I don't feel safe. So take this adrenaline, take this heart palpitation, and yeah, we're gonna make you a little dizzy for a little while. Okay, well, what are some things? Now I know it's happening. We're in the moment, right? What tools did your therapist give you that you can use? Or what have you discovered? Like for me, always going back to the breath, right? Belly breathing, slowing down the breath, and allowing the moment and whatever's happening to pass. I'm not trying to resist it. I'm not trying to fight it. I'm not trying to control it. I'm not trying to make myself feel bad because it's happening. It's imagining a storm happening, right? There's nothing you can do about the fact that, but it's not going to rain forever, right? At some point, that storm has to pass. What do I do in those moments? And recognizing, guess what? This is uncomfortable. It's not dangerous. And if you can make that separation, then you stop trying to resist and trying to control certain outcomes that you never had control of in the first place. Matter of fact, the sense of control is an illusion. And that's another kind of hard fact that you have to accept. You think you're in control. You're not. You're
I
not.
have a problem with open space. I didn't realize this for a very long time, but
Mhm.
like parties and like dark, highly populated places. And when I was in college, I used to duck out of parties early. So my friends would be like, "You watch her because she always leaving." Like by the time they're ready to leave, I was already back in my dorm. I'd be like, "I'm in the bed." Like so, they'd be like, "Watch her," and I don't care where we would be. The first thing I do is look for the door, the exit door.
Yes.
I need to know where the exit door is soon as we step in the joint, okay? And as soon as everybody's doing their thing, I am, what do they call it? The Irish goodbye?
Yeah. I'm out.
Quietly. Like I still do that. But I realized once I started really getting an understanding of trauma recovery and dealing with your anxiety and your triggers, like that's a whole thing. Of course, I'm grown now, like
Yeah.
super grown. But when I was 22, I didn't understand why I did it. I just know I did it, and they probably thought something was wrong with me. She
Yeah.
always sneaking out. She always sneak. Yeah, I do. You just know that it's going to happen. I didn't understand why, but
Yeah.
now it's like this is probably going to happen. If I have to
Yep.
go to a thing, if it's
Yes.
work related, I need to get in there and handle the business
Right.
because when that alarm starts going off, I
Yeah.
can't control it.
Yeah.
And if I try to, I'm going to wind up in a worse situation. So
Yeah.
it really is an opportunity for you to become very conscious of your body. So when they say mind, body, soul,
Yes.
spirit, like
All
you
connected.
have to hear it, listen to it, and
Yes.
obey because you
Yes.
will wind up in a very bad situation. So
Yeah.
we were talking about your book.
Yes.
Let the viewers hear a little bit. I know you have something that you want to read to us. Let's
Yeah.
give them an idea of what they're going to be getting because we want everyone to go out and support. Yeah.
Absolutely. So while finding this, the book is divided into three sections, right? You have awareness, which I talked about earlier, of advocating to have a journal so that you can write down everything you're experiencing within your mind, within your body, and having that awareness, right? And then going to see your primary care physician and ruling out through any type of blood work, or if you need to see a specialist. I've seen folks who thought they had an anxiety issue, but it turned out something like the thyroid, had an issue with that. So again, you're not going to find that on Google, but your doctor can help at least rule out some stuff, and at least it's not this. So if a thought comes in your mind to say, "Oh, what if it's that?" No, you've already tested that and ruled that out, and so that's not anything you need to struggle with mentally again. The second section is equipping, and this gets into the nervous system, right? Understanding that your autonomic nervous system is divided into it's two main systems. You can get more detail than that, but the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic deals with rest and digest. Sympathetic deals with fight or flight. And
Mm.
understanding that those two different paths exist, you can start to connect like different behaviors and environments and things that is going to put you in one system versus the other, right? But if you don't know those exist, then you won't really know how. Once you understand how systems are related to your mind and body, then you can start to cooperate with it, or know that what you're doing at the moment is feeding into the system that you probably don't want it to feed into. Something as simple as like a shallow breath, and tightening like your muscles is telling your
Mhm.
body, hey, gear up for fight or flight. You're giving all the stimulus that's showing like there's danger present, and there's really not. And the third section is execution. This is the part I'm going to read from, where we talk about, I have two acronyms: MAP, which is your mindset and action plan, and then there's GPS, which is your goals, understanding that these goals have a progression in terms of how you achieve them, and then the S part is self-identity. Um, but I'm going to read from the section, or one of the mindset principles, um, that says discomfort is your friend. And I had to learn this early on in therapy. And to be honest, I initially thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. My therapist shared with me the idea of sitting with my emotions and discomfort. I did not like that at all because I remember thinking, why in the world would I want to do that? I'm trying to get away from that. That is why I came here, so I thought. The truth is, your discomfort is pointing to one or more of your core values that anxiety is exploiting. And so that's one of the main core things that if you're not able to embrace that, you will not pass go, you will not collect $200, and you're going to stay stuck. The only way to freedom is back through that door of discomfort, and having a good licensed professional help you to walk through that. You're not going to do it all in one time. You're not going to get cured in a one or two sessions. You're talking about unpacking things that have existed in your life probably for decades. And so we're breaking old habits, old mindsets, but having someone who can help you navigate through that is essential. And this is why I push for therapy so hard. But that is one of the key principles, along with acceptance, along with, I'll mention another one here, vulnerability, right? We equate that to weakness. It's not. My definition of vulnerability is being open and trusted environments. And this allows for you to be able to connect with yourself and with someone who can help guide you and walk you from these dark areas and patterns that have you stuck into an area where you're able to thrive and come out of that survival mode, which is going to ultimately trigger your anxiety in the first place.
Yeah, I love that. Well, show the people the cover.
Yes. So, and we dip it a little bit just so the light.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You'll see
Leaving
that's
Jupiter.
planet
I love.
Jupiter right there, and this is the person just kind of walking, their way through the difficult areas of feeling stuck and hopeless into an area of thriving and having your confidence back again. So, um, in
I love.
addition to that, I also made a journal that goes along with it that allows you to capture your thoughts and look at your weekly goals and reflect on things that you may want to take to your therapist. Or that's one of the main reasons why I had a journal, was because you're going to start off with the pleasantries with your therapist. Oh, how did your week go? Blah blah blah. I came with an agenda. Okay, we can go through the first 5 minutes of how your week went. When I was ready to do the work, I'm like, let's just unpack it. I don't want to sugarcoat or, oh, just ease your way. No, because I know what the alternative is. If I don't deal with this, I'm going to be stuck. I'm going to have insomnia. I'm going to wake up with a blast of adrenaline and figure out, well, how am I supposed to be a father and work full time and pay bills and take care of my own self and be a husband and all that stuff when I have all these things pulling on me that I don't know what to do with. you
Yeah,
know I want to overcome this stuff, and guess what, my kids are watching me. So you are modeling how you're going to handle this, and you're telling them through your actions, this is how you handle these tough situations. This is how you handle struggles with mental health. For me, I hope I demonstrated to them that, yeah, you can go through a rough time, partner with, licensed professionals, and overcome. And they had a front row seat of watching me go from not wanting to come out of my bedroom to, flying to Atlanta and Denver and other places where I just didn't have the physical capacity to do that. So, and there's been different times I sat down and talked with them and said, here's a little more detail about what you saw, because maybe you were too young and didn't understand everything that was happening. But and then you start to have the conversations of understanding, oh, they're dealing with certain levels of anxiety too, and now this opens the door for an open dialogue, and you can demonstrate and show them, here's how you navigate that. And feel free to come talk to me anytime about this, because you've seen me go through my worst and bounce back from that, and you can do it too.
I love that. I appreciate your ability to be open about the struggles, and the parenthood piece of it. I think is a really big deal, especially because the kids are dealing with such a high level of stress and anxiety too. Our experience and being able to relate to them is huge. So, thank you for sharing your story today. Thank you for sharing your book, and just talking us through what this is like. I think it's very important information. I know personally a lot of people that deal with mental health
Yeah.
and issues of anxiety. that go far beyond anything I had even imagined. I
Yes.
mean, complete shutdown. So thank you for sharing this. And are you going to be touring or speaking? Like, how can the people stay connected to you?
Yes. So I have a number of things. I have my website, which is beyond-anxiety.com. My book is available on Amazon as well as through my website. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as beyond.anxiety underscore, where I'm posting on a daily to a weekly basis. And at some point, I'm working on my own podcast. So I plan to come out with that this spring, as well as I want to start to do teaching master classes of helping people to navigate through this, because it's one thing to read the book. It's another thing to have someone coach you through where you might be into a place of where you're trying to get to. And so, like I said, I'm not a licensed clinician, but coaches deal more so with setting certain goals and helping you deal with the limiting beliefs of what's stopping you to get from this place to that place. But ultimately, I'm pushing you into talking with licensed professionals. Get the help that you need, deal with the stigmas, unpack that with any questions and concerns that you have. You can actually have a consult with a potential therapist before taking them on as like a
Right.
full-time like therapist. And so I certainly did that the second time around. And but I also made use of certain websites that have filters. What was important to me is that the person maybe has a background in trauma or somatic therapy, or that they were available through virtual. Like, I didn't feel like traveling to go anywhere. I just wanted to be. There's all different types of criteria that you may have that will help narrow down and get to the actual therapist that you're ultimately gonna be with. But the consult is critical because it gives you the look and feel, and you can say, I'm not really vibing with this person, and it's nothing personal. It's like you test drive a car and you're like, wasn't quite what I thought it was. I want to test out a few other ones, and maybe I'll come
Right.
back to that.
Yeah. When I went on my book tour, I realized after the first couple of stops that I needed to have a therapist with me, because when
Okay.
you start opening up about your issues, your trauma, it makes other people comfortable to do the same.
Yes.
And sometimes I was left with some very heavy things that I
Yeah.
couldn't do anything with and I couldn't help. And
Yeah.
I went to go find a therapist that had expertise in complex trauma.
Okay.
And there are a lot of therapists and very few that actually deal with complex trauma. So
Ah,
that's a whole other thing. It's depending on what it is that you are dealing with, what kind of mental illness, what kind of stress and trauma and
yeah.
anxiety you're dealing with. It might be hard to find someone that will take you on. So be
Yeah.
very clear that it is a search, it's work, it's a
Yes.
commitment to yourself, it's a commitment to the healing and understanding the treatment process and just making sure that you are committed to getting better. So again, I want to thank you for sharing your story and your book with us. Definitely keep in touch. Send me that information so that
Okay.
I can put it in the captions so everyone can have it and they can
Will
go
do.
buy the book and they can continue to support you. And if you come out to California, you little East Coaster, let us know so that we can support you, because once you are part of the Leaders and Learners family, we always support. So
All
keep us
right.
posted. Thank you for your time and
Thank
stay in
you for having
touch.
me on. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
You take it easy.
Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What do you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.